Welcome to One Insight. My name is Litvin. I grew up in London and I now live in LA. And this is a podcast for extraordinary top performers and their coaches. You see, I've coached some of the most successful and talented people on the planet. I can see what most people cannot see, and I dare to say what most people wouldn't dare to say. And what I know about success is that on the other side of it, it can be incredibly lonely. You can feel more of an imposter the more successful you become. And when you're the most interesting person in the room, you're actually in the wrong room. Clients who are more successful, more intelligent, and wealthier than you need your support more than they know and more than you can imagine. I coach around insight. Life looks one way, something happens, and the world looks different, and your entire world changes. It can happen in an instant. And this podcast is called One Insight because a single insight can change everything. This is a fun conversation. Scott is trapped by his dream career. He's still serving as a director of leadership development at a large multi-million-dollar organization, and he's doing coaching, speaking, consulting on the side. And he wants a way. He's almost burnt out. There's no space for him right now. And I use a hot button. I press a hot button in this conversation around his daughter in a way that really deeply moves him. I use what I call the holy shit, Rich conversation. And I challenge him in ways that show him what got him to the success he's had today, going to hold him back from the success that's possible for him tomorrow. Enjoy. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Rich.
Hey, thanks for saying yes to this. Tell me, what would make this an amazing conversation for you?
I think what would make this an amazing conversation for me, just where I am right now, I still have my dream corporate job, and I have jumped headfirst into this pool of coaching and helping people, personal development, speaking, facilitating. And I was ready to step away from that corporate job. I had several things lined up in October, and I had this amazing opportunity where my youngest daughter, who was 16, came to me and said, "Dad, I want to come to Maryland and live with you." So in December, she moved here from Indiana, and that has changed everything. So I put everything on hold as it relates to this job and my career and what I'm doing going forward. And I'm stuck. I'm stuck in, I guess, a place of fear, of cutting the cord and stepping out. Let
me pause you for a second.
Mm-hmm.
This is interesting. Thanks for sharing that. I really felt that. And for anyone who was listening rather than watching the video, when you said my dream corporate job, you did air quotes around the word dream. But I really felt that. And there's a place where, whilst this story is fascinating for me and it's moving as well, I'm a dad, so I can feel what you're feeling and think about your daughter. I don't need the story in this moment. Mm-hmm. I'm noticing you haven't yet answered my question, and sometimes that's challenging, right? What would make this an amazing conversation?
What would make this an amazing conversation would be for me to truly believe in myself, that I'm ready to go all in and be able to craft what that exit strategy looks like.
I have a distinction I draw between conventional success and exponential success. Conventional success is captured in two ways. Stephen Covey says that you climb the ladder of success and you get to the top and you discover it's leaning against the wrong wall. Mm-hmm. Or the comedian Rita Rudner says the problem with the rat race is that even if you win it, you're still a rat. But nevertheless, it traps us, right? Because we have whatever it is, the mortgage, the rentals, the house, the school fees for the kids, whatever it is, we're trapped, and it's hard to walk away from that. So we get caught on, it's not so much a ladder as a treadmill that it's actually hard to get off. Especially when you have responsibilities, it feels so much, right?
Absolutely.
So two things come to me. One is, I work with a lot of people in the corporate world and help them transition to coaching and consulting. Sometimes the thing to do is to burn your bridges, to make a radical transition. That's it, I'm done, I'm complete. And sometimes, one of my favorite questions is to say, could you do in 4 days what most people do in 5?
Easily.
I mean, the kind of high performers I work with, that's almost always the answer.
Easily.
And so what if, rather than an exit strategy being, when's the moment I'm going to leap, what if it was, okay, well, how do I make that happen? How do I make, I'll do in 4 days what most people do in 5, easily, you said. In fact, I'll produce more, I'll be doing more extraordinary work because my time is limited. I'll actually have to focus on the things that make the biggest leverage. I'll probably have more of an impact, is the interesting point about that. And then you have 1 day a week. And that 1 day a week, and you said to me, you've read the Prosperous Coach. It's Prosperous Coach 101. The first time you have that day to yourself, you might spend the day reading. The second time you have that day to yourself, it might be, oh, who would I love to speak to? And connect, invite, create, propose that framework. You start to play out. And you say to people, look, I work in the corporate world, and 1 day a week I have a space for one client. I only have 2 hours. It's on a Friday, and it's between 10 and noon. I have a space for one person. And when that's filled, I have a second spot. It's between 2 to 4 on a Friday. And you start to discover that, I can actually fill up a Friday with 1 and then 2 and maybe 3 clients. Now I get that I can do this, and I'm making money at this. Could I do in 3 days what I currently do in 4? Is there a way to take more time out? Once a month, I'll have an extra day off. And to build an exit strategy that's slightly different to jumping out the plane and hoping to build the plane, the parachute, whatever it is on the way down. How does that land?
It makes total sense. The analogies that you used heading into that really, really landed with me, with the, especially the latter. In terms of how that lands, yeah, I mean, that would be really good. I have more work though already in my coaching and consulting business than 1-2 days that will actually house that effectively.
So tell me about your world then, because I know you work in leadership development. You're in a multi-million-dollar corporation.
Yes.
You also have a coaching and consulting practice on the side.
Yes.
Tell me, like, logistically, how does that work?
Well, logistically, I mean, I put forth my 50, 55 plus hours and unquantifiable amounts of energy into that leadership development work. I'm also a consultant for 2 other organizations that contract me out for facilitation workshops and things like that, which is a fantastic financial element. And then I currently have 7 individual clients that I work with from a coaching standpoint. So yeah.
Those are people who are listening and can't see my face. I'm smiling in this moment. And you're a dad.
Yes.
How do you get the time to do all of that, my friend?
I sleep about 6 hours a day, and it's all jammed in. I mean, my days are full. My life is full. My heart's full. I'm thankful for all of that.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
But it is not something that is sustainable.
No.
For sure.
No. And here's the interesting thing. I'm going to push what I call a hot button now. And when you're talking to a parent, it's very easy to see where the hot button is. You are modeling for your daughter how to live her life. I'm the dad to 2 kids. It doesn't matter what I tell them about how to live their life. It's they watch me, and that's the biggest impact on how I'm living my life, how they're going to show up.
Yes.
What's the thought of how does that thought land inside of you that My 16-year-old might end up doing 50, 60 hours a week, stressed out, maxed out into the future because that's the role model her dad gave her.
Mm. When you said that, I actually physically felt hot.
Yeah.
Like I could feel the heat rise from my stomach and into my chest and my neck. That's not what I want for her. I want her to see that she should be doing something that is fulfilling, that allows her to live her purpose. And to be able to do that in if that's helping other people, whatever that is, but not in such a way where it's taking away from her whole being with the other parts of her life. The word balance kind of comes up as I say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is completely out of balance right now.
Yeah. And it's sustainable for a while, but there'll come a moment when this impacts you too much and then it's too late in that moment.
Right.
So we need to kind of come back to this moment and have a look at like, okay, what do you want to create? What would look extraordinary for you in the future? The clients that you have, are they private clients who pay you individually?
They are.
Okay. So here's the first challenge I have for you is you're not charging enough.
Yes.
Okay. I see your smile. My favorite challenge in that moment is to tell someone to double their fees.
Mm.
The thing about doubling your fees is that you only need half as many clients just to stay where you are. The work you've done on leadership development, the level you're at in the corporate world, the kind of people you want to work with, investing at that level is not the issue for them. So there is a reason to raise your fees. There are other coaches who will charge less and do all sorts of things. So you don't have to worry, but who you are and your background should be reflected in the fees that you charge, because that will be reflected in the impact that you have on those people and their business and their lives.
Yes.
So there's a time to double. Because of your smile, in my head flashes the thought, double, if not triple, your fees for private coaching clients. So there's number one thought.
Yes.
Number two, I live my life by a number of heuristics, rules of thumb. And one of them is space is where miracles occur. So my job is to constantly find ways to create more and more white space on my calendar. There cannot be any white space on your calendar. And white space is where creativity occurs, new ideas occur, new possibilities, new relationships, new connections, and recreation, recreation. So you're re-energized for what you want to do next. It's time to put white space on your calendar. And here's the thing about white space. You have to put it on your calendar first. You can't wait for it to come in and be squeezed in around the edges. There's never any space for it.
Right. And there's no space for miracles right now.
Yeah.
It's survival. Mm-hmm. It's surviving and not thriving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you and I was to speak in 3 years and you said, you know what, something happened in that conversation with you and me that had a massive impact. And now 3 years later, I've got my dream lifestyle. What would you be telling me about your life, your business, your relationships? And let's do it as if we're talking and 3 years has already passed. We've been in our time machine. It's 3 years have gone. And the question, the way I like to start this is, holy shit, Rich.
Holy shit, Rich. I can't believe it's already been 3 years from that discussion. It's funny how life has changed so dramatically. If you remember when we talked, I was stressed out and there was no white space on my calendar. It's amazing now being able to speak now that I only have just a handful of high-paying clients who I engaged through a speaking opportunity, which led to skills transfers and workshops within their organization, which led to the ability, the trust, and the ability to coach and consult. I'm only doing that with just a handful of folks right now, but the crazy thing about that is that my income is actually 3x. It's actually tripled what it was just 3 years ago. but more importantly is the time and the white space, as you called it, that is created. My wife and I, my daughter, we're able to travel. We love to travel, experience great cultures, experience great food. And I have so much time to do that because I have this repeatable, sustainable process that has allowed for that. And it was born out of that conversation that we had 3 years ago.
Remind me two things. When you think back 3 years ago, what was the single biggest insight you had from that short conversation we had?
There were a lot, but the one that really, I think, propelled me, because I had such a response to it in the moment, was when you mentioned my daughter and what I was modeling for her. And that led to what we actually call the insight, which was that space is where miracles occur.
And remind me too then, what was the first tiniest step you took after we got off that call 3 years ago?
The first thing that I did when I got off of that call, as I remember, was I did a really thorough audit of my calendar. And what I actually did is I cleared everything as if I had no responsibilities whatsoever. I actually started a brand new Google Calendar.
Nice.
And I actually created the space for those miracles to occur before I did anything else on the calendar.
Nice.
And I layered things back in from a priority perspective, really through the lens of my daughter. What are you teaching? What am I teaching my daughter through this process? Can this insight be pulled forward as a father and make an impact in her life as well?
What's your daughter's first name?
Lily, Lily.
There are some Christians who wear a bracelet that says WWJD. What would Jesus do? And it makes life really simple for them when there's a decision to make. They just ask that question, what would Jesus do? There's something like that for you with Lily. It's whenever there's a decision to be made, should I take this gig? What should I charge them? Should I use this day to work or have free time? It's having Lily's image first and thinking of her and the role model you are for Lily. The most important word for you in the next 3 years has 2 letters. It's N-O. No's a hard word to say unless you have a yes that's big enough that you can say yes to, that everything else easily becomes a no. So Lily becomes your yes. Who am I being for Lily? How am I being a role model for Lily? That it becomes easier to say no. And I'll give you 2 things, 2 tools to take away. One is, let me sleep on that. Let me sleep on that as a phrase I use as a buffer, because my default is to say yes. My default is to say yes to opportunities, to ideas, to connections, to things that take up my time. So I make it my practice to say, let me sleep on that, especially when it seems like a really good idea. And I'll say, like, you know what, that, especially when it seems like a good idea, I condition myself to say, let me sleep on that. If I wake up tomorrow and it's still a hell yes, and it is for you, we'll talk and that will happen. But if it's anything less than a hell yes, I make myself call it a hell no. And I wouldn't be in service to you or your company or whatever it is, the opportunity, if I didn't say that. And let me sleep on that is a great tool to give me this buffer that separates me from my default pattern, which is to say yes. What got me to the success that I was at was saying yes to almost every opportunity that arose. What will get me to my next level of success is saying no to almost every opportunity that arises.
I love that.
The last tool I'll give you Yeah, go ahead. Finish that sentence.
I was just going to say that visual really resonates with me because it gives me pause to consider in those moments that I have doubt and I have, questions of my ability and my capability and my direction. Sometimes it feels like I'm still on the ground floor. Mm-hmm. But I have said yes to so many things that particular analogy lets me see that I'm not here. I am here. Yeah. And now it's time to pivot so that I can get here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
The last tool I'll give you, it comes from Steve Chandler, actually. It's called an ideal average day. So an ideal day might be spent sipping cocktails on a beach on some remote island. But an ideal average day, what does your ideal average day look like? What time would you wake up? When would you work out? What kind of food would you eat? How many clients would you work with? Would you spend any time doing work that generates new business? What would your ideal average day look like? How much time would you spend with your daughter, on your own, with your wife? Craft out your ideal average day. I remember the first time I did this. I crafted it out. I put it on my wall in my office. It's on my wall. And then a month or two later, I was talking to a client and the idea came up and I said, let me tell you about this concept called ideal average day. And I said, in fact, I'll bring mine down. I'll tell you about mine. And I read it out to her and I said, I'd wake up at this time, I'd work out, I'd spend time with my wife. And I went through the whole day and I said to her, oh my God, that's today. Within 2 months, it already happened. And I hadn't done anything other than create it and put it on my wall. Mm. But most of us live a default life. We're creating a default future. We are heading passively into the future that is being created by every past step we've taken. And a few people are willing to live a created life. And a created life is when you have an image of Lily and you think about her before you make every decision. When you have your ideal average day on the wall. When you know, I'm willing to say no because I have a bigger yes to say yes to. Those are some of the elements for living a created life. Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Rich.
I think we're there. This is what I call a hot seat moment. We're there. Sometimes it's tempting for a coach to dive in deeper and want to turn this into a 17-step plan. Mm. Who you are, what you've done in your life. I know how you know how to make extraordinary things happen. Mm. And you do it, as always, one tiny step at a time. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Rich.
For most of human history, it wasn't called coaching. It was called leadership. And it's what I love to do, to coach people, to lead people, and to mess with people's thinking. If you'd like more of this, or if you'd like to learn more about our community of extraordinary top performers, go to richlitvin.com/oneinsight.